Former Navy Admiral, former member of Congress, a real great patriot in the truest form of the word, and a frequent guest on this show and on our Rebuild America show, and when I have the chance to host the Ed Schultz show as well. And our good friend Joe Sestak joins us on the phone. Admiral, thank you, Congressman, for joining us today.
It's good to be back with you, Jeff.
Happy holidays.
Same to you.
I want to talk to you about this situation in Korea. Now, we've always talked about the concern of nuclear weapons in Pakistan and how, and I know you have felt this way for a long time, and I have too, that the real issue is not Afghanistan but Pakistan.
Right.
You got a situation now where another potential scenario where we have loose nukes in North Korea. We don't know much about this 22-year-old potential leader, the son of Kim Jong-Il, and this is problematic. And the more and more you think of it, the more worried you get. Your thoughts about what we have to do here in these initial days to make sure that things remain on track, and I mean on track, that there's at least some sort of roadmap to stability in that part of the world. It's that the wrong hands, that nuclear weapon, is doomsday for all of us. Your thoughts?
Yes. Our overarching concern, as you mentioned, is the nuclear material that North Korea has, where they can presently build about 8 nuclear weapons. We were very concerned that next year they were about to do a third nuclear test that would prove their ability to miniaturize a nuclear warhead, which means two things. One, they can build more nuclear weapons out of the material they already have, and they can fit it onto a small missile that can go up to 3,000 kilometers. That's why the Mrs. Clinton and others were trying to have talks, which were supposed to happen this Thursday in China with North Korea, but now the death of Jong-Il has occurred. So what's most important now is stability, because we have no idea of how much power this young son, Jong-Un, has acquired in the 1 year of transition he has had. It'll be stable through the funeral of 28 December. But after that, a very measured, quiet work approach to North Korea is needed so that no belligerent actions that could be interpreted belligerently are taken, where someone in power in North Korea takes it as an excuse to demonstrate their own power within that nation, and that's the concern.
Would this be a situation, if you were advising President Obama, that you would say, look, there are two people that have had success in dealing with the North Korean regime from America over the last few years, and that is former Secretary of Energy and UN Ambassador Bill Richardson, and, of course, Bill Clinton himself, who brought those two women, Lisa Ling and others, back from a visit. Would it be wise here to say, look, because of this situation, we need to bring the best that America has in relationship over there, and begin a dialogue and to sort of do this? Or is that panicking? Is that doing it too much and saying, well, let the South Koreans, they know better than anybody else about this, let them handle it? How would you approach this?
What the North Koreans have most wanted over the last few decades is to be dealt with by America as a legitimate power. They've always wanted direct talks with us. They don't like the six-power talks. They most wanted to be treated as an equal by us. And therefore, I really do believe that the best approach, and we've missed this opportunity in the past, is to try to deal directly by our U.S. government officials with North Korea. Yes, we have to work in the six-power talks, and China is extremely influential. But I believe that the more effort of frank engagement from our designated government officials, the more successful we can be. I recognize what Jimmy Carter did back in 1994 to resolve a crisis and what Bill Richardson did. But right now, steady progress under the Obama administration, I think, would bode us better in this tenuous moment.
I would agree with you, because I think the closer you can get to the story, as opposed to sort of outsourcing it, as we all know, in a lot of ways that word is used in every capacity. That is really important. And when it comes to outsourcing, the other term is human intelligence. We're just talking with our friend at the Talk Radio News Service, Ellen, about this. That the fact is that, you know, we depend a lot, as you know, on drones for a lot of our information, not only there but around the world. And it's nothing like anything else. I mean, you know, you want to be across the table from somebody. You don't want to be on the phone. You don't want to be online. Yeah. You want to have that physical thing. So it all goes back to that, right?
Without a question. Look, I am a big believer that engagement, personal engagement, bodes much better for success than not doing it. Before anyone thinks of putting our men and women into harm's way, whether it's with Iran or North Korea, there has to be direct engagement by our diplomacy to try to prevent a crisis from becoming a conflict. And the Clinton administration, as you mentioned, did that. In 1994, there was actually an agreed framework where, for about 6 years, North Korea stopped producing plutonium material. And it actually had a missile moratorium. Now, we found out in 2002 that it was cheating by building a nuclear reactor. But rather than, as the Bush administration did, just saying, you're cheaters, we're not going to engage with you anymore, we should have worked with carrots and sticks to stop that uranium effort. And so my take on it is exactly what you say. Sit across the table. Diplomacy is not a cup of tea. It can bring sanctions and incentives. And I think that's the best approach. And that's where the Obama administration was just getting back to doing when his death occurred.
Well, I think it's critically important, and look, you understand it. If you have if you have a really good person at the top of your team, whether you're playing football or baseball or whatever the case may be, and you don't use him or her, then you're really neglecting the effort that you're doing, and the team, the people who are your supporters. And I think that the president really should think seriously. You could use Vice President Biden. He has a lot of good people that he could go to. And I just think that it's that important when you consider what could happen if this gets into the wrong hands. I mean, so.
Absolutely. And, Jeff, if I could bring one other important player into the discussion, and that's China. China has different goals than the United States. We want stability in North Korea, but we don't want it to have a nuclear weapon. China, on the other hand, wants stability, but it mostly does not want a regime that implodes and does two things: creates 1 million refugees and more that will cross its border. And second, have a unified peninsula where South Korea, with a U.S. military presence, comes up to its border. It wants a buffer state between it and South Korea. It's why it fought the war with North Koreans against the South back in the early 1950s. Somehow, having China work with us to first change the economy, reform the economy of North Korea so that it doesn't just implode on its own because of its growing impoverishment, although it's so dire today. You have 1 million people that starve to death, and China has spoken up on that. And second, to make sure that it somehow sees that a nuclear weapon that is mated to a missile is not in China's interest, because it may then start an arms race, for example, with South Korea that it does not want, or even Japan. And so That's the dynamic that's playing there. China's got to be brought into this to understand it's not just about a buffer state. It is about stopping the pursuit of a nuclear weapon. And that's why, as you said, get our best players in there, but get in there and talk.
I have about 60 seconds. Your final thoughts here as we leave Iraq, which I think is long overdue. And in my opinion, we should never have gone in there. But the fact is that you now see the battles that we've been concerned about between Sunni and Shiite, and we have, of course, the Kurds to the north. What is the strategy in your mind the administration should have on Iraq in terms of? I mean, there are going to be some, of course, in the right wing who say, "Oh, we got to go back in there. We move it out too fast." The fact is, it's been issued. You could stay there for 100 years, and it's still not going to change the fact that you have culturally hundreds of years of people battling between Sunni and Shiite, and of course Kurds to the north. How do we go forward? What's the best way, in your opinion, Admiral?
It has been time for us to depart Iraq, but that does not mean we departed the region. We have the largest naval fleet in America's arsenal, sitting in the Persian Gulf, the Fifth Fleet. We have Army and air units spread throughout, as well as special force units from Kuwait to Oman and other countries. Our presence is there, and if we needed to go back into Baghdad to stop a threat to us like Al-Qaeda, which isn't even around in Baghdad, we could always do that. This is now, as it should be, in the hands of the Prime Minister Maliki. Those issues that we saw when we went in, Sunni versus Shia, that you brought up, are issues that we had no potential to resolve after we opened up Pandora's box that Saddam Hussein had sat on with repression, this secular violence. They have an economy that can grow at a faster rate than China or India because of the oil that it has underneath it. It's now got to be in their hands. It isn't a direct threat to America. It could be an unstable situation, but only if there's a direct threat to us should we ever have a surgical takeout, for example, as we did with bin Laden in Pakistan. And last, Iran. I don't think you'll see Iran being successful trying to, as some argue, fill the vacuum they claim that's going to be in Iraq because our presence isn't there. Because the Iraqis and Iranians fought a decades-long war, hundreds of thousands were lost. There'll be more nationalists before they are Shia in the way that these two Shia-led nations are going to deal with each other.
Joe Sestak, it's a shame that you're not in the Senate right now. Your patriotism and intelligence could severely be used. Thank you for always, and thank you for this year. It's probably the last time we talked to you in 2011. So thank you, and happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. We look forward to talking to you quite a bit in 2011, and one of these days get down to Pennsylvania and do a show from there as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff, and same to you and your staff.
Thank you. That is Joe Sestak. I'm Jeff Santos.